Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Boubacar Diallo. I got my PhD in 2015 in economics from the University of Quebec in Montreal. Prior to my PhD, I studied in France. I got my bachelor in applied mathematics and engineering in statistics and finance from the University of Nice-Sophia Antipolis and Paris-Dauphine University in France. Why I'm making this video? I'm making this video for several reasons. I think that what is happening actually right now in our country has awakening me up because I do think that I stayed away from politics. I'm not a politician, but I would be glad to share with my country men and women the experiences that I have acquired from different countries that I lived in and worked in. Right now, I do think that the only thing that I can do about that is through economics. And why economics is important is because I believe that it can change people's perceptions, the way people understand their own life, because we do economic every day, although we don't exactly sometimes know that we're doing economy, but in all our decisions during our life, we do economic, we think in terms of economic decisions. That is why I would try in these videos or in my videos to explain why economics is important. And more importantly, I would emphasize on our country, Guinea. Why Guinea? Because since the independence in 1958, despite all the natural resources we have in our country, all the human capital, physical, human capital, natural resources, the country is still lagging behind in terms of development. So my goal in these videos here would be to share with you why it's important to understand the principles of economics and how everybody within an economy can be actors so that to boost the level of development that we would need in our country. But before doing that, I would like to mention a simple disclaimer here. Everything that I will be saying in my videos or everything that I'm going to be mentioning here is based solely on my personal responsibility. I'm not talking on behalf of my previous employers or current employers. So everything that I will be mentioning here is based on my own opinion and personal opinion. Okay, so I think that this is very important to mention. And the second thing is that I will try to make short videos, so that I hope that the interaction will be interesting for everybody. And at the same time, I will be also getting questions if you want. I have already made some videos in French, but I think that it's important to have a global view, because if you're interested in economics in general, we need to have this overview. And as well as in our country, Guinea, we also have some people who probably do not speak French, but speak English. and also maybe the video might be useful for other listeners living across Africa or elsewhere in the world. So I'm not solely making this video for Guinea, even though the main focus would be about Guinea, but I hope that the video will be useful for many countries or many people living across the continent or elsewhere. Why it is important to mention the case of Guinea? It is important in several aspects, because when you look at the situation, it could be political situation, instability, etc., etc. I do feel that we have to mainly focus first on the economy, but we cannot focus on the economy without the will or a strong government that would push for those policies that would enable the country to grow and benefit all its citizens, regardless of ethnicity, sex, age, etc. Okay, and but before doing that, I would try to explain a little bit the roadmap so that we can have an idea, why mentioning or why talking about economics is something that is beneficial not only to people of Guinea but to people living everywhere in general. The more we have information about the economy, the better. Okay, so that is why I think it's very, very powerful actually, to start by this simple fact. Okay, but before doing that, we will start talking about maybe 4 or 5 points in these videos. I hope that we will have time to have more videos. But first, what we will be doing is just to start with the basics, and I will try to explain why it's important or why it is very advised to everybody to have some fundamentals about economics. And we'll try together to define economics, what it is, and what kind of science it is. After introducing the concept of economics, we will be talking about the two most important principles of economics, which are supply and demand. As you know, these two concepts are widely used across nations, across populations, across countries. But I would say, unfortunately, they are also not well understood by those people usually using them. And then I will give some examples so that we will try to capture what demand and supply mean. And then we will have some applications, and then we will see what happens when supply doesn't meet demand or when demand doesn't meet supply. Because the confidence that I'm going to be making to you is that doesn't matter the economy that we live in, but whenever we face a crisis or an economic issue, it is because we have some problem between either the supply or either demand. So meaning that we have something that is not functioning as it should be. And this dysfunctional behavior of the economy, I would say, create subsequently what we call the financial crisis in general. And if you are familiar a little bit about some economic terms, doesn't matter the type of crisis we face, there is always this idea that we do have sometimes the crisis we're facing, experts will often use, it's a demand crisis, it's a supply crisis, etc. But those terms in general are not well understood across the population. So that I will be trying to do here is to make sure that people listening to these videos will have an understanding about what is supply and what is demand and what happens when they don't meet. And what we're gonna see is that when they don't meet, we may have some issues in the economy. Okay, so that would be the first video that we will be really talking about. And then I will make sure that these two concepts of supply and demand are well understood, because it doesn't matter what happens later in terms of economy. We always talk about these two concepts. Okay. After that, and then we will talk about something that is also well known across the population, which is the terms what called GDP. These three letters, I would say, one of the most popular, letters in economics, or across the globe, about people talking about economics in particular. So GDP means gross domestic product. Okay, so we will see how it is defined, how it is calculated, why it is important to know what we have inside GDP, and then what it measures. Because whenever you look at different countries and then you look at if you are measuring the well-being of country, we always talk about GDP, or it's also GDP per capita, per head, if you want. We will be talking about this. We will be talking most importantly, or in particular cases of Guinea. I will try to show you that from the date of the independence until now, hope that we can have data on that, what really happened on the Guinean side. And then I would probably also look at some countries around, Guinea, in the region. So just to have some contrast. So to see how in general, the GDP of Guinea has evolved over the 60 years, and then where we're going, and then where we came from. So that would help us gain a deeper insight, so that we can also come up with policies that we would think would be helpful to increase the GDP, which is also the income of a country, etc., etc. Okay. But after talking about the GDP, after talking about supply and demand, and then we'll be talking about money and prices. And then, as I already said, GDP is also gross domestic product, what a country produces over a certain period of time. But whenever you produce something also, we may probably consume it, or we may probably sell it. So then when you talk about consuming or selling, and then you are talking about exchange. When we talk about exchange, we talk about then money. Okay. And then we'll be talking about money. We'll be talking about the origin of money briefly. I will be talking about also prices, which is very important in terms of the so-called inflation. We all know that inflation is a concept that is also widely known by the public, because it affects us directly. So we consume, we buy things, we sell things, but at the same time, we check the prices. So we notice in general, or oftentimes when prices, go up right away, we can feel it. Okay. So inflation affects everybody within the economy. In Guinea, in Senegal, in the US, in Canada, in Europe, anywhere. Okay, in China, in Australia, etc. Doesn't matter where you live. In general, an increase in prices, which is the definition of inflation, affects everybody. So we will be talking about this. And then we will be talking about Guinea again. I will show you some data about Guinea. And then we will be able to see what is really happening, because I think our population always, mention this. It doesn't matter, year by year, week by week, whenever you talk with people and then they tell you that, oh, the prices, have gone up, and then this has increased, the price of rice, price of oil, the price of fish, the price of meat, the price of coal, to cook, etc., etc. So we'll be talking about this. But what's going to be interesting in the case of Guinea or in general is that we will be relating this increase in prices or inflation to money supply. Okay, that is why, as I told you before, it's going to be very important to start with supply and demand so that we can have an idea. Okay, so after linking inflation to money, and then we will see what kind of role plays the central bank. Okay, it could be the central bank of Guinea or the central bank of any country that you want. Okay, and then we will see the decision that are taken by central bank in general have an impact on the level of prices. Okay, so we will be discussing about this, and then we will be seeing also some cases about Guinea. Okay, so after talking about income, production or GDP if you want, inflation and money, you're going to be talking about unemployment, which is also one of the topic that is very hot in our country. You have huge number of young people that are unemployed. They don't have any job. They finish university. Unfortunately, they don't have jobs. So they have to either find something else or, just stay at home without any job. And then we'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about the working population, if you want. And then we will see some policies that potentially create high level of unemployment. Okay. We will also see some policies that might decrease unemployment. Okay. I will give you example of certain countries, and then I will relate it, the topic on North America, Europe, Asia, etc., etc. Okay, so that will be the third topic that we're going to be discussing. Okay, so the fourth one will be to discuss. We're going to be discussing about consumption, savings, and financial market. Okay, this has been my topic of interest for the last, I would say, 6 years, because I did my PhD in this specific area. So I was interested in looking at how the development of financial system or financial markets, could be banks, etc., could be drivers of economic development or economic growth. Okay, and then we will be mentioning the role of savings and investment, how that could help, how that could channel growth, but through financial institutions or banks, if you want. Okay, we'll be giving you some examples, although some people might say, oh yes, but in general, financial institutions, banks are bad. But this has to be really put in the context that we understand better. Okay, it's not always good and bad. You have the middle ground of understanding really this. Okay.